Mark had never been fond of these high-stakes diplomatic meetings, but today was different. Today he was the human representative for the most important peace talks. Between his people and the newly discovered alien species, the entire galaxy was watching, waiting to see if this fragile alliance would hold or fall apart. Mark, however, couldn't shake the feeling that he didn't belong here. The grand room where the talks were being held was full of alien faces, all watching with calm, unreadable eyes. He felt small in comparison, and though he tried to listen intently to the discussions, his mind kept wandering. The talks were scheduled to break for lunch, and Mark jumped at the chance to leave the formal atmosphere for a moment. He excused himself from the table and walked through the high doors that led into the open courtyard. The bright sun shone down on the peaceful gardens, and for a moment, Mark felt a sense of calm. He was standing outside, trying to clear his head, when he heard footsteps behind him. "Are you enjoying the view, human?" Mark turned to find a tall figure walking toward him, her eyes fixed on him with an intensity that took him off guard. She was beautiful, graceful, with long silver hair and golden eyes that glowed softly in the light. Her presence was captivating, almost otherworldly. Wasn't like the other aliens he'd met. There was something about her that made him feel both drawn in and wary, I suppose, Mark said, trying to sound confident, though he was taken aback by her sudden appearance. He noticed that she wasn't wearing the typical attire of the other diplomats. Instead, she wore a flowing robe that shimmered with patterns he didn't recognize. "Are you nervous?" she asked, her tone casual but piercing. Mark chuckled nervously. "I think that's an understatement. This is a bit more than I'm used to." The alien woman nodded thoughtfully, her eyes never leaving his. "I can tell." She paused before adding, "You must be wondering why I'm here." "I'm more curious about why you're talking to me," Mark replied, trying to break the awkward tension. The woman gave a small smile, but it was unreadable. "'Cause you see, human, I have a question for you." She stepped closer, closing the distance between them. Her voice was soft, but there was an unmistakable edge to it. "What do you want?" Mark blinked, caught off guard by the question. He was about to respond with something flippant, something that would brush off the seriousness of the moment, but then he saw her eyes. They weren't like anyone else's. They shimmered with a depth he couldn't understand, pulling him in. He felt as though she could see straight through him. The words that escaped his lips were unexpected, and before he could stop himself, he said, "You." The moment he spoke, the woman's expression changed. Her eyes widened, and the gold in them brightened, almost glowing. She stood perfectly still, as though frozen by his words. For a moment, Mark wondered if he had said something wrong, but the silence between them only deepened, and Mark realized he couldn't pull away. There was something in the air now, a strange energy that seemed to hang around them. It was as if the very world around them had shifted. "Excuse me?" the woman asked, her voice now much softer, almost like a whisper. She took a step closer. Her gaze locked on his face. You want me?" Still unsure of what was happening, stammered. I didn't mean it like that. I was just—" "No," she interrupted, her voice calm but firm. "You meant it exactly how you said it." Mark frowned, his heart racing. There was something about the way she said those words, something that made him feel both exposed and drawn to her at the same time. He had thought he was joking. He hadn't expected anything more than a laugh or a polite brush-off. But her reaction was different. She wasn't just intrigued. She was changed. The woman took another step closer, her golden eyes now glowing brighter than before. Mark could feel a pull, something he couldn't explain, tugging at him. He felt it in his chest, as if something inside of him had awoken, something he had never noticed before. "I didn't think... He started, trying to make sense of what was happening. "I didn't know that was," but she raised a hand, silencing him. "You spoke the truth," she said quietly. "And now you can't take it back." Mark didn't know what to say. He felt like he had just stumbled into something much larger than himself, something that he didn't understand. The woman's gaze was intense, and it seemed to burn into him. She didn't look away, didn't flinch. After what felt like an eternity, she finally spoke again. "My name is Anaya. I am not like the others. And now you have caught my attention." Mark was about to respond, but before he could form any words, Anaya stepped back, her eyes never leaving his. The moment seemed to stretch on for what felt like forever. "I will see you again, human," she said softly. "Sooner than you think." With that, she turned and walked away, leaving Mark standing there, alone in the courtyard. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what had just happened. What did she mean by that? Why did her words feel so important? He couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning, but what it all meant, he had no idea. As Mark made his way back into the conference room, he couldn't help but glance over his shoulder, expecting to see her again. But she was gone, like she had never been there. The strange pull he felt was still there, lingering in the air, leaving him with a sense of confusion and unease. The story had just begun, and Mark had no idea how deep he had just fallen. Mark couldn't stop thinking about Anaya. After their brief encounter in the courtyard, her image was burned into his mind. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw her golden eyes staring back at him, and every time he tried to push her from his thoughts, something inside him told him that he couldn't. There was a strange, unsettling feeling that he was being watched, and every time he turned around, he thought he saw her only to find nothing but the empty corridors of the alien palace. The following day, during the second round of talks, Mark tried to focus on the discussions at hand, but his mind kept wandering back to Anaya. He had convinced himself that it was just a passing moment, something he'd forget soon enough. After all, she was just an alien princess, and he was a diplomat. There was no reason for him to be thinking about her so much. But the more he tried to push the thought away, the stronger the pull became. As the talks progressed, Mark kept glancing around the room, half expecting to see her again, but she never appeared. The other delegates seemed to notice his distracted behavior, but no one said anything. It wasn't until the end of the day that he realized Anaya had been following him. He walked out into the hallway, eager to escape the heavy atmosphere of the conference. When he heard footsteps behind him, he turned to find her standing there, as if she had materialized out of thin air. "Anaya," Mark said, surprised to see her again. "I didn't expect you were looking for me," she said, her voice calm, almost knowing. She stepped closer, her golden eyes glimmering in the dim light of the hallway. Mark felt that strange pull again, like an invisible thread tying him to her. His heart raced, and for the first time, he felt a little out of control. "I wasn't looking for you," he replied quickly, trying to regain some sense of normalcy. "I was just, well, I guess I'm just a little distracted." Naya tilted her head slightly, a small smile on her lips. "You're not good at lying, human." Mark frowned, feeling exposed. "I didn't mean to." "No need to apologize," she interrupted softly. "I know what you want." Mark's eyes widened. "What do you mean?" She took another step toward him. "You think I don't notice, but I do. You're not the first human to feel this way. The bond is strong, but I'm not sure if you understand it yet." Mark stepped back, his mind racing. "What bond? Now, what are you talking about?" Anaya's gaze softened slightly. "The bond that we share now. The one you unknowingly awakened with your words." Her voice was low, almost hypnotic. "It is not just a passing fancy, Mark. You cannot escape it." Mark felt his throat go dry. He wasn't sure what she meant, but there was a sinking feeling in his stomach that told him that she wasn't joking. "This is crazy," he muttered, shaking his head. "I just said something stupid." "No," Anaya said, her voice firm. "It's not a joke. It's a connection that runs deeper than either of us can understand. It's ancient, Mark, and now you are a part of it." Mark backed up against the wall, his heart pounding. "I don't know what you're talking about. This is too much." He rubbed his temples, trying to make sense of it all. "I'm just a diplomat. I'm here to do a job." Anaya stepped closer, her eyes locking onto his. "And now, you are bound to me, and you will never be the same." Mark's breath caught in his chest. He didn't know what to say, and for a moment, he didn't know if he could move. His body felt heavy, like he was being drawn in by some invisible force. It was like he was caught in a web, and there was no way to escape. "You don't have to be afraid, Mark," Anaya said softly, almost as if sensing his panic. I will not hurt you, but the bond. It cannot be broken. Mark tried to push past her, but she didn't move. Instead, she reached out and gently touched his arm, sending a shiver down his spine. I don't want this, Mark whispered, more to himself than to her. I don't know what this is, but I don't want to be part of it. Anaya's gaze softened, and she withdrew her hand. I didn't choose this either, she said quietly. But sometimes, fate has a way of choosing for us. For a long moment, they stood there in silence. Mark's mind was in chaos, but there was something in Anaya's eyes that told him she wasn't lying, she wasn't threatening him. She was simply telling him the truth, or at least the truth as she saw it. Finally, Mark broke the silence. What do I do now? Anaya didn't answer right away. Instead, she turned and started to walk down the hallway, motioning for him to follow. You'll have to come with me, she said. There's more you need to know. Mark hesitated. He didn't want to follow her. He didn't want to know more about whatever this strange connection was. But something inside him, something he couldn't explain, made him take a step forward. The pull was too strong to ignore. As they walked down the corridor, Mark felt a growing sense of unease. His thoughts were jumbled, and he still couldn't fully comprehend what Anaya was saying. But he couldn't shake the feeling that his life was about to change forever. Anaya led him to a small room, one that looked different from the rest of the palace. It was quieter here, almost sacred in its stillness. She motioned for him to sit, and as Mark did, he noticed that the air around them seemed to hum with energy. There are things you don't understand, Anaya said as she sat down across from him. Things I can't explain in a single conversation, but I will help you understand. In time, you will see the truth. But know this, there is no going back now. You are bound to me, and I to you. Mark's head was spinning. What if I don't? Want this? He asked, his voice almost pleading. Anaya's golden eyes met his. You will, she said simply. In time, you will. And with that, Mark realized that whatever he was about to face, he had already crossed a line. There was no turning back now. He was trapped, but there was no telling what kind of trap it was. Mark couldn't sleep that night. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Anaya's golden eyes staring back at him, and the strange words she had spoken echoed in his mind. Or you are bound to me. The thought sent shivers down his spine. He had barely known her for a day, yet somehow he was tangled up in something he didn't understand. What did she mean by the bond? How could one moment, one simple conversation, change everything so quickly? He paced the room, trying to shake the feeling of being trapped. The walls felt too close, the air too thick. Mark needed answers, and he knew he wouldn't get them from anyone else. Anaya was the only one who could explain, but there was something in her presence that made him uneasy. Still, he couldn't ignore the pull, that strange force that kept him thinking about her, kept him wanting to know more. By morning, Mark had made up his mind. He had to talk to her again. He couldn't keep running from whatever this was. He found himself walking through the palace halls, seeking her out. As he turned the corner, he spotted her standing at the end of the hallway, as if she had been waiting for him. Mark, she said, her voice calm but with a hint of something deeper, something he couldn't name. I knew you would come, Mark. Stopped a few feet away from her, suddenly aware of how much taller she was. Her presence was overwhelming, like gravity pulling him closer without effort. He could feel the weight of her gaze, her eyes tracing over him, as if reading every thought, every fear. He shook his head, trying to clear his thoughts. Anaya, he began, his voice a little shaky. What is going on? What is this bond? What do you mean by all this? Anaya stepped forward, closing the distance between them. The bond is ancient, Mark. It's been waiting for the right moment. A connection that has existed between our people for centuries, but only a few individuals can awaken it. And you, Mark, are one of those individuals. Mark looked at her, his confusion deepening, but I didn't mean it. I was just joking. It wasn't it. Doesn't matter, she interrupted softly. Once the bond is triggered, it cannot be undone. It is part of something much bigger than us. Something that connects us in ways we can't yet understand. He swallowed, his throat dry. But I don't understand any of it. just want to be free. I don't want to be caught in this. Whatever it is. Anaya's eyes softened, though her gaze remained intense. I didn't choose this either, Mark. Believe me, I didn't want this bond to be awakened. But it's fate. And you will come to see that it was meant to be. Mark's chest tightened. There was something about the way she spoke that made it hard to argue, but he couldn't just accept this without answers. I don't want to be part of something I don't understand. I know, Anaya said, her voice softening, but you will learn in time. You are not alone in this. I will help you understand the bond, but you must trust me. Trust that this connection is not a curse, but a gift. Mark took a step back, his hands trembling. A gift, he repeated, disbelief in his voice. How can this be a gift? I don't even know what this is, and now you're telling me I can't escape it? Anaya nodded slowly. The bond is not just about us, Mark. It's bigger than either of us. Our people were once united, but we grew apart. This bond is meant to bring us back together. It's meant to heal old wounds. Mark felt a knot tighten in his stomach. So what you think this is supposed to be, some sort of ... reunion? He shook his head. I don't know if I'm ready for something like that. I'm not even sure if I want to be a part of it. Anaya looked at him for a long moment, her gaze unreadable. I don't expect you to understand everything right away. I didn't either, but I promise you in time, you will see. And when you do, you'll know that this bond is the only way. Forward for both of us. Mark's heart raced. There was something in her words, something so certain that it made him feel as though he had no choice but to believe her. But he wasn't ready to accept it. He wasn't ready to accept any of it. I need time, Mark said quietly, his voice almost pleading. Please, I need time to think. Anaya's expression softened, and she reached out, gently placing a hand on his arm. You have time, Mark, but don't wait too long. The bond will grow stronger, and with it, so will the connection between us. Her words hung in the air, and Mark couldn't shake the feeling that they meant more than just their immediate situation. Something inside him told him that he was standing at the edge of something vast, something that would change his life forever. But whether it would be for better or worse, he didn't know yet. Later that evening, Mark found himself back in his quarters, pacing again. His mind was racing with everything Anaya had said. The bond, fate, destiny. None of it made sense to him. How could he be a part of something so ancient? Something he had never known existed until now. He sank down into the chair beside his bed, running his hands through his hair in frustration. How could one conversation change everything? He hadn't even done anything special. He'd just made a stupid joke. And now his life was intertwined with Anaya's, in a way he couldn't understand. She's right, he thought reluctantly. There's no going back. As the hours passed, Mark found himself thinking about the strange connection he felt whenever Anaya was near. It wasn't just her physical presence that had drawn him in. It was something deeper, something that tugged at him from the inside, a pull that couldn't be ignored. He had never believed in destiny. He had never believed in fate. But now it was impossible to ignore the truth in Anaya's words. Whatever this bond was, it was real. It was already changing him. The days that followed felt like a blur to Mark. He couldn't escape the pull of the bond, no matter how hard he tried. Anaya was always nearby, and despite his best efforts to keep his distance, he found himself drawn to her in ways he didn't fully understand. Every glance, every quiet conversation seemed to deepen the connection between them. Mark tried to focus on his duties. He knew the fate of both their peoples rested on these talks. But his mind was always elsewhere, his thoughts consumed by the golden-eyed alien princess. She had warned him that he would come to understand the bond, but that didn't make it any easier to accept. One evening, after the day's talks had ended, Mark found himself standing on the balcony of the palace, gazing out at the stars. The night air was cool and fresh, and for a moment, he tried to calm his racing thoughts. But as he stood there, lost in the vastness of space, he heard the soft sound of footsteps behind him. Mark, Anaya's voice came, clear and steady. He didn't turn around, but he could feel her presence beside him, as if she had always been there. "Anaya," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what to do. I feel... trapped." Anaya was quiet for a moment before she spoke again. "You are not trapped, Mark, but you are bound, and that is different." Mark finally turned to face her, his brow furrowed with confusion. "What does that even mean? You keep saying that we're bound, but I don't understand it. What does this bond really do?" Anaya's golden eyes met his, and for the first time, Mark saw something different in them, something vulnerable. Something that made him realize she wasn't as certain as she had seemed. "I will explain," she said softly, "but you must trust me. This bond, it is ancient, Mark. It was created long before either of us were born, before our worlds even met. It is a connection that once existed between our two species. Bond that was broken long ago when we turned away from each other. But it was always meant to come back, to reunite us." Mark listened intently, his heart pounding in his chest. The pieces were starting to fall into place, but he still didn't understand everything. "So you're saying this bond? Not just between you and me, it's between our species." Anaya nodded. "Yes. It was a bond that linked our worlds together, ensuring peace and harmony. But over time we lost it, and when we did, so did our connection. Now this bond has returned, and it has chosen us." "Chosen us," Mark repeated. "I didn't ask for this. I didn't even know about it until you looked at me like that." Anaya stepped closer, her expression softening. "I understand that this is difficult for you, Mark, but this bond is not just a matter of fate. It's a matter of survival. Our two peoples were once united, but now we are on the brink of war. The bond is our last chance at peace." Mark felt a chill run down his spine. He knew the stakes were high, but he had never imagined that his role in this would be so... personal. "So what you're telling me I'm the key to saving our worlds?" Anaya's gaze never wavered. "Yes, this bond, our connection, is the only thing that can heal the wounds of the past. But it must be nurtured, understood, and accepted. The bond will grow stronger, Mark, and with it, so will our connection." Mark shook his head, still struggling to grasp it all. "But how? Do I know that you're not just using me? How do I know that this isn't some kind of... manipulation?" Anaya's eyes softened, and for the first time Mark saw a hint of sadness in them. "I never wanted this, Mark, but I can't change what has already been set in motion. Not using you, I'm asking for your help. Together, we can fix what has been broken. But you must trust me, just as I am trusting you." Mark took a deep breath, the weight of her words pressing on him. He had never been one to put his faith in something he couldn't fully understand, but something in Anaya's eyes made him want to believe her. He didn't know if he could trust her completely, but he couldn't ignore the strange pull he felt when she was near. "I don't know if I can do this," he said quietly, his voice full of uncertainty, "but I'll try. For the sake of peace. For both our worlds?" Anaya smiled, the warmth of it reaching her eyes. "That is all I ask, Mark, that you try." The next day, the following morning, Mark found himself back in the conference room, the weight of the conversation with Anaya still heavy on his shoulders. The atmosphere in the room was tense as the alien representatives discussed their concerns, their voices rising with frustration. Mark sat quietly, trying to focus on the negotiations, but his mind kept drifting back to what Anaya had said. She had told him that the bond would grow stronger, that it would bring them closer. But what did that mean for him? How much control did he have over his own life now? He felt as though he was being swept along by forces beyond his understanding, and the uncertainty of it all made his stomach churn. The meeting dragged on for what felt like hours. Mark couldn't shake the feeling that time was running out. The discussions were growing more heated, and Mark could see the tension in the room. The peace talks were on the verge of falling apart, and he knew that the fate of both their peoples rested on his shoulders. Finally, the meeting came to an end, and Mark stood up, his legs stiffed from sitting for so long. He was about to walk out when he saw Anaya standing near the door waiting for him. She had been watching him during the entire meeting, her gaze never leaving him. He could feel the bond between them, stronger now, pulling him toward her. "Mark," she said softly, her voice full of urgency. It's time. Mark looked at her, his heart racing. Time for what? To make the choice, she replied. The bond is waiting. It's ready. But you must make the choice to embrace it. Mark took a deep breath. The decision was his. But what was the right choice? To accept the bond and risk everything, or to walk away and hope for a different future? He didn't know the answer, but one thing was certain. His life would never be the same again. The days that followed were a blur of confusing emotions and decisions that weighed heavily on Mark. He couldn't escape Anaya's presence. She seemed to be everywhere. It was as if the bond had taken control of everything, pulling them closer. Even when he tried to resist, he could feel her eyes on him during the talks, could feel the invisible thread between them tightening. There was no going back now, and he knew it. Mark spent hours walking through the corridors of the palace, trying to sort through his thoughts. His mind raced with questions. What did it all mean? Was this bond truly meant to bring peace, or was it something darker? What was expected of him? The more he thought about it, the more confused he became. The pressure was building, and he could feel it in his chest every time he looked at Anaya. The galaxy was waiting for him to make a choice. Peace talks were at a standstill, and if they didn't find common ground soon, war could be on the horizon. He was part of something much bigger now, and his every move could decide the future of both their peoples. One evening, after a long and tense meeting, Mark found himself alone in the palace garden. The soft hum of the stars above provided some comfort, but his thoughts were far from calm. He sat down on a stone bench, trying to clear his mind, but the memories of Anaya's words kept replaying in his head. You must make the choice. Mark, she had said the other day, the bond is ready, but you must choose whether to accept it. It will grow stronger the longer you wait. If you refuse, the consequences will be far worse than anything you can imagine. What did she mean by that? Was he truly bound to her? Now, was there a way out? Just then, he heard footsteps behind him. Mark turned and saw Anaya walking toward him. Presence was calming, yet unnerving at the same time. Her golden eyes locked onto his, and for a moment, it felt like the world had paused. Mark, she said softly, her voice almost a whisper. You're avoiding me. He stood up, his hands clenched at his sides. I'm not avoiding you. I'm just ... trying to figure things out. Keep saying the bond is something I have to accept, but I don't understand it. I don't know if I can just ... accept it. Anaya took a step closer, her gaze never leaving his. I understand. That you're confused? But this is not just about you and me, Mark. It's about the future of both our peoples. The bond was created to heal the rift between our worlds. Without it, there can be no peace. Mark shook his head. But what if I don't want this? What if I don't want to be part of something I don't understand? Anaya's expression softened, and for the first time, Mark saw a glimpse of vulnerability in her eyes. I didn't want this either, Mark. But sometimes destiny is beyond our control. This bond, it chose us, not because we wanted it, but because the universe saw something in us that can restore what was lost. Mark stared at her, his heart pounding. He didn't know what to say. He was being asked to make a choice that he didn't feel ready for. And yet, there was a part of him that couldn't deny the connection he felt to her. It wasn't just the bond. It was something deeper, something he couldn't explain. Do you think we can fix everything? He asked quietly. Do you really believe this bond can heal the damage between our peoples? Anaya stepped closer, reaching out and gently touching his arm. I believe in it, Mark. I believe in us. But you must choose to believe in it too. You fight against the bond, you will only cause more harm. It's not just about you and me. Anymore, it's about the future of both our worlds. Mark took a deep breath, his mind racing. He had never been someone who believed in fate, never someone who thought that destiny controlled his life. But now, standing in front of Anaya, he was starting to question everything he thought he knew. Was this bond really a gift, a chance, to bring peace to two worlds on the brink of war? Or was it a trap, something that would only lead to more conflict? He looked into Anaya's eyes, seeing the sincerity there. He saw a woman who, like him, had been caught in something far bigger than herself. and though he didn't fully understand it, he could feel her pain, her hope, and her fear. "I'm scared," Mark said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't know if I can do what you're asking me to do." Anaya's eyes softened. "I know you're scared, Mark, but you don't have to do this alone. I'm here. We can face this together." For a long moment, Mark stood there, staring at her. He could feel the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He wasn't sure if he was ready, but he couldn't ignore the pull between them any longer. He had seen what could happen if the peace talks failed. He had seen the tension in the eyes of the delegates, the fear that war was imminent. With a heavy heart, Mark made his decision. He stepped closer to Anaya, taking her hand in his. "Okay," he said, his voice steady. "I'll do it. I'll accept the bond." Anaya's face lit up with relief, and for a moment, Mark saw the princess he had first met, the one with the strength to lead, the one who believed in this bond more than anyone else. "Thank you, Mark," she whispered. "You don't know how much this means." Mark nodded slowly. He didn't know what would happen next, but he knew one thing for sure: his life was about to change forever. Whether it was for better or worse, he had made his choice. Later that night, Mark lay in his bed that night, his mind racing. He had made the choice, but now what? What would it mean for him, for Anaya, and for their people? He didn't know. But he had taken the first step toward whatever lay ahead. The stars outside his window seemed to shimmer more brightly than before, as if they were watching him, waiting for him to fulfill his role in this strange new world. He had found himself in the bond had been awakened, and there was no turning back. Mark was no longer just a diplomat. He was part of something much bigger, something that could change the course of history. And as he drifted off to sleep, he couldn't help but wonder what tomorrow would bring. The morning after Mark made his choice, he awoke with a feeling he couldn't shake, a mixture of anticipation and dread. The night had brought him little rest. His mind was filled with thoughts of the bond of Anaya and of the future he had just stepped into. He hadn't truly understood what he had agreed to, but now there was no going back. He sat up in his bed, running a hand through his hair, trying to focus on what he had to do next. The peace talks were still ongoing, and the situation was becoming more tense by the hour. The delegates were growing impatient, and Mark could feel the pressure building. He wasn't just representing humanity anymore. He was part of something bigger, something tied to the future of both their worlds. Mark stood up and walked over to the window, staring out at the vast city below. The palace was perched high on a cliff, offering a view of the sprawling alien city that stretched out beneath the bright twin suns. It was beautiful, yes, but it also felt distant, as if he was looking at it from a place he no longer belonged. Everything had changed. There was a soft knock on the door, interrupting his thoughts. Mark turned, his heart skipping a beat. He knew who it was before the door even opened. Anaya stepped inside, her presence filling the room, as it always did. Her golden eyes met his, and for a moment, he felt a sense of calm wash over him. "You've made your choice," she said quietly, her voice softer than usual. Mark nodded, his throat tight. "I have, but I'm still not sure if it was the right one." Anaya stepped closer, her eyes searching his face. "There is no right or wrong in this, Mark. There is only the path you choose to walk, and you've chosen the path that can bring peace." Mark looked down, his fingers curling around the edge of the windowsill. "I don't know if I believe that anymore. Everything feels so much bigger than I thought it was. It's like I'm caught in something I can't control. I don't know what to do with this bond, with the weight of everything." Anaya reached out and placed a hand gently on his arm. "You are not alone in this, Mark. I am here, and I will help you understand. Together, we can make this bond work. Together, we can heal what has been broken." Mark turned to face her, his heart heavy with the weight of her words. She was right, he wasn't alone in this. She had chosen him, and now he had chosen her. But it wasn't just about the two of them. It was about the future of their people, about something that could either save or destroy everything they knew. "I'm afraid," Mark admitted, his voice cracking. "Afraid that I can't live up to this. Afraid that I'm not strong enough for what this bond means." Anaya smiled softly, her gaze unwavering. You are stronger than you think, Mark. The bond is not about strength. It's about trust and understanding and accepting what we are meant to do. You don't have to have all the answers right now. You only need to trust in the journey. Mark closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. What if I make the wrong choice? Naya stepped forward, her voice soft but firm. There is no wrong choice. You've already made the one that matters. The bond will guide you, and it will bring you to the place where you can do the most good. You are not alone in this. Mark opened his eyes and looked at her, seeing the sincerity in her gaze. For the first time, he felt a small spark of hope ignite within him. Maybe he didn't have all the answers. Maybe he didn't understand everything about the bond, or about Anaya, or about what he was supposed to do next. But he knew one thing for sure: he couldn't turn away now. The galaxy was waiting, and the bond was already changing everything. The talks would continue, and he would face whatever came next. But for now, he had to accept that he was part of something bigger than himself. He had to trust in that. I'll do my best, Mark said quietly, his voice steadying. I'll trust in this, in you. I'll do what I can to help bring peace. Anaya's expression softened, and she nodded. That is all I ask. Later that day, the tension in the conference room was palpable. The delegates from both species sat at the long table, their faces set in grim determination. The room buzzed with hushed voices as everyone waited for Mark to speak. His heart raced as he walked to the front of the room, feeling the weight of their gazes upon him. He had made his choice. Now it was time to act on it. Mark cleared his throat, feeling the eyes of the galaxy upon him. He had never felt this much pressure in his life. But he couldn't back down now. He couldn't let fear control him. He had a responsibility not just to humanity, but to Anaya and to the bond that connected them. I know these talks have been difficult, Mark began, his voice steady, but firm. But I'm here today to tell you that there is still hope. We are at a crossroads, yes, but it is not too late to make the right choice. We can bring our worlds together, but it will take trust, understanding, and a willingness to accept what has been given to us. The room was silent, the weight of his words sinking in. Mark looked around at the alien delegates, their eyes narrowing as they listened. He knew this wouldn't be easy. He knew there were those who doubted the bond, who didn't believe in the possibility of peace, but he had to try. He had to believe in something, even if it was just for the sake of the future. The bond that has been awakened between our peoples is not just a matter of chance, Mark continued, his voice growing stronger. It is a force that can bring us together if we choose to accept it. It is not about domination or control. It is about unity, about healing old wounds and finding a way forward. He paused, letting his words hang in the air. But it starts with us. It starts with trust. And it starts with the willingness to put the past behind us and move forward. Together. Mark's gaze shifted to Anaya, who stood at the back of the room, watching him intently. He could feel the bond between them, strong and unyielding. He had made his choice, and now he had to stand by it. As he spoke, Mark could feel the tension in the room start to shift. The delegates were listening, their expressions slowly changing from suspicion to curiosity. They hadn't heard anything like this before. Maybe, just maybe, there was a chance for peace. As the meeting adjourned, Mark felt a sense of relief wash over him. The first step had been taken. He didn't know what the future would hold, but he knew he had done the right thing. The bond had guided him, and now it was up to him and Anaya to see it through. The galaxy was watching, but for the first time in days, Mark felt like he was ready to face whatever came next.